restructure domestic bonds in order to secure the $3 billion IMF bailout.
Yeah, I mean, debt structuring, restructuring is inevitable because looking at our situation now, we cannot keep on, being under such pressure to satisfy our interest obligations and all this.
We have reactions plus analysis. Also tonight, scrap position of regional ministers and deputy CEOs of state-owned enterprises to save the Ghanaian economy as rating agencies continue to ring louder alarm bells. The charge to President Akufo-Addo.
Remove the repetition of some ministries. You can't have Western housing and have water works and sanitation and local government. What do they do exactly? By withdrawing all deputy CEOs, making only deputy minister, cancelling regional ministers.
Also tonight, NDC braces itself for a fierce contest of the national chairmanship position as the General Secretary John Cecil Nketia declares officially that he will not seek another term in that role as he readies himself to contest incumbent chairman Samuel Fusu-Ampofo.
Look
at all these persons who want to run for general secretary. All of them say they will only run if I don't contest.
Maya say me consider Sunday morning and I said Yankoyanim. Enti the make a chairman say general secretary no they take it from me
Uncle Bill.
We will hear from him as he dismisses concerns that contesting Samuel Fusu-Ampofo will cause a divide within the NDC.
Matiti say, Ebinumo Kase, I said, Dunkatian Kwandi, Oni, Ampofu Coprea, Party Numu Beche, Echako Hif.
I've heard people say if I contest with Fusu-Ampofo for the chairmanship, the party will be divided. How will that happen?
And in business, Bank of Ghana reshadows policy rate announcement to October 7. We'll find out why this move by the regulator.
And in sports, Black Stars captain Andre Ayew concedes the team is not...
And my name is Evans Mensah. Let's get to the issues surrounding the economy. And investors are tonight beginning to digest global news reports suggesting that the government is actively pursuing a plan to restructure domestic bonds in order to secure the $3 billion IMF bailout. According to Bloomberg, Ghana's largest debt investors, including local banks and pension funds, are preparing to engage in discussion on debt reorganization that could entail extension of maturities and haircuts on principals. Now, ratings agency Fitch yesterday said sovereign debt default is now a real possibility for Ghana, but warned that any kind of domestic debt restructuring could severely threaten the local banking sector. We'll hear from President Akufo-Addo shortly as he takes on the ratings agency. But let's get you some more details on this as it unfolds on the international wires. My colleague Brace is in the studio with me. Could you, the Bloomberg reporting, what is it that you're saying will happen to domestic bonds?
Well, what they're saying is that Ghana is poised to start talks with the domestic bondholders on a restructuring of its local currency debt as part of the nation's plan to secure a $3 billion loan from the International Monetary Fund.
Did they say anything about whether the local banks are in on this? Do they know about what is going to happen?
So the nation's largest debt investors, including local banks and pension funds, are preparing to engage in discussions on debt reorganization that could entail extension of maturities and haircuts on principal and interest payment, according to people familiar with the matter. But they've asked for them not to be identified because they are not authorized to speak publicly. The restructuring would be part of a debt sustainability plan required by the International Monetary Fund, the people said, and that will include part of the 19 billion Ghana cedi that Ghana has in outstanding local debt.
I see. Did they say anything about our foreign bonds?
Well, the country's debt reorganization will initially focus on domestic bonds, though external liabilities could also be included depending on how much Ghana would have to reduce its debt servicing cost to achieve fiscal sustainability, one of those people said. The exercise will also focus on easing the country's interest payment burden, and whether that requires haircut to principal, interest, or both will be the subject of meetings between the government and bondholders in coming weeks, the people said.
Okay, Kojo, thank you very much. And talking about what has been happening on the international wires, international ratings agency Fitch has been warning government to back off any plans to restructure the domestic debt. As you just heard there, it suggested will happen by Bloomberg. Fitch says any such attempt will put a lot of stress on the local banks. You know, Ghana's economy has in recent times received negative ratings from various agencies, a situation President Akufo-Addo is unimpressed with and had reason to question these ratings when he addressed the United Nations last night.
Credit rating agencies have been quick to downgrade economies in Africa, making it harder to service our debts. The tag of Africa as an investment risk is little more than in substance a self-fulfilling prophecy created by the prejudice of the international money market, which denies us access to cheaper borrowing, pushing us deeper into debts. During times of crisis, the facade of international cooperation under which they purport to operate disappears. We do not have the luxury of being able to pick and choose which problem to solve. None of them can wait. The economic turbulence requires urgent and immediate solution.
Let's bring in Professor Godfred Bokwing, economist, who joins us on the telephone line right now. Prof, thanks for your time here on Newsline.
Yes, good evening, and good evening to our cherished listeners.
I mean, what do you make of this Bloomberg reporting that domestic debt restructuring is firmly on the table?
Well, this is largely consistent with our expectations. More than 3 months ago, or even at the beginning of the year, we had feared that some form of debt restructuring was inevitable. At the time, we were asking the government to go for an IMF-supported program. We knew that the debt numbers were not sustainable. In fact, actually, from 2019, debt servicing costs have become the biggest expenditure item on government resource allocation function. And clearly, that wasn't sustainable. Where we find ourselves right now, it's quite precarious. I say so because there is no way Ghana's future debt repayment can be done without significant adjustment to our fiscal policy in terms of raising more tax revenues immediately or cutting down on spending in order to free up resources for debt repayment, and also without altering our financing decision. That is where we find ourselves right now. The way the IMF program works is that your debt levels must be sustainable before an IMF program can kick in. Other than that, it will hold off the program from achieving greater effectiveness. So without that, an IMF program cannot be deployed in the first place because one key requirement for an effective IMF program is your debt sustainability. The DSA is very fundamental. And we are at the position where we have breached almost all the debt sustainability indicators, whether you look at it from debt to GDP ratio or those that are more forward-looking in terms of present value of debt to export ratio, present value of debt to GDP ratio, or debt service to revenue ratio, because the country's debt repayment capacity is a function of your export performance, it's a function of your GDP growth, it's a function of your revenue generation. So where we find ourselves right now, it's quite serious. And then to look at it more in terms of the liquidity measure, debt service to revenue ratio is taking more than 60% of non-oil tax revenue. That is not sustainable. I mean, under such circumstances, there is no way we can even have an IMF program in the first place. We are almost in the same position like Zambia a couple of months ago, where the staff level agreement in terms of a fund-supported program had been reached, and that required some kind of arrangement with creditors, and that agreement needed to be presented alongside that of the staff level agreement for IMF Executive Board to consider. That is where Ghana finds itself right now. Some form of debt restructuring is inevitable. The question is whether we should do the haircut on the domestic or the external or a combination. And even
that's a real question. That's a real question.
Yes. Hello?
Yeah, so which should we do? I mean, the suggestion is that the focus is on the domestic.
So if you look at the posture of the government, you get the impression that they want to do an IMF program and using that credibility to re-enter the international capital market so we can continue with our usual Eurobond. If that is a push-start, then it means that the government will be unwilling to prioritize external debt restructuring, which may entail investors taking a haircut and also resuming some kind of participation in the international capital market. Once you do external debt restructuring, it's the same as it could be interpreted to mean default, and that would affect our credit rating and our ability to enter the international capital market and do Eurobond. Usually, if you look at the way it works, any external debt restructuring may prevent Ghana from entering the market probably not less than 6 years or so in terms of getting back and building that credibility. And perhaps the reason they would want to prioritize domestic debt. But then again, we will still need to be very careful with the domestic debt because it could undermine confidence in our financial system. It could undermine, because, the government security is the safest, almost risk-free. So if the government, through its own actions and inactions, we are at the point where the government's own back security issue is at the point of default, then is that serious for all of us? Then again, you want to look at the holdings in that domestic debt. You want to look at financial sector, the implication of that in terms of the exposure of banks and even on bank financial institutions and even individuals. And Evans, what makes it more interesting when you consider the domestic debt is that the yield across all the debt instruments are actually below inflation rate currently. It means that the real return on those to investors on that is already negative. So if you are asking them to take a haircut on already negative real return, that's quite serious, right? But some form of restructuring has to take place. But I'm a bit worried. The reason I'm a bit worried is that the government hasn't shown enough admission that there is a real problem that requires government on accommodating some kind of internal devaluation in terms of reducing the size of the government. Look, it's just like you owe somebody, you the borrower, you ask the lender, can we go for a meeting and restructure my debt, which may entail you taking a haircut? You showed up at the meeting in your V8 private jet, right? And the lender shows up at the meeting in an Uber. Who has more space to ask for what? So government has to show leadership. We said this at the beginning of the year, that the government needs to reduce the size of the government and free up space. It doesn't have to be $3 billion, but the signal effect is fundamental. How do you go to investors who are already accommodating negative real return and ask them to take a haircut when you are busily growing your hair, right? No, you must come to the table with some kind of honesty and integrity and the necessary moral standing to ask for something. Government hasn't demonstrated that on the table, right? You could see the queue for the new VA 300 series, right? From government ministers and MPs and the rest of them. Come on. You can't go to that negotiation table with that size. It means that you yourself, you are not showing leadership. You are not showing it. In hard times like this, you first have to show that leadership. You first have to go through that internal austerity to demonstrate to the market that, you know what, I am in this situation, but I have given up so much. And I want you to also come to the table in a way that enables the country collectively to come out of this. Yeah. We are not seeing that. And that is unfortunate. And I think that is lack of leadership on the part of government that fails to sympathize with the reality.
I mean, then what just begs the question. If government is going to restructure the debt, even if it's domestic debt, they will need the permission of the investors. What should investors' reaction be to this if government comes to them to say, listen, guys, I need to sit with you because I want to restructure? What should investors be saying back to government?
Well, or if this is not managed very well in itself, it could trigger some kind of panic withdrawal and portfolio rebalancing in the market. But already it also depends on what government puts on the table. But certainly you would expect some kind of fight back, right? you would expect some kind of a pushback. That's why it's going to be a negotiation. You don't want to get to the situation where government will simply default. But typically, with the domestic debt, default perhaps will be the last thing. And ordinarily, it will not happen. Because to the extent that those debts are denominated in cedis, in the worst case scenario, the government will just print more cedis to pay down on its debt. When they choose that approach, they are actually shifting the burden of the debt from the state to the citizens. And that will cause inflationary pressure to jump up. That unexpected increase in inflation effectively represents a form of taxation on your income, right? So these are hard times, challenging times, and unfortunately, you don't get the impression that the government or the Ministry of Finance is of the same posture as the market assumes, because we are kind of living in some kind of denial that we are in a deep crisis, and which will require the necessary mobilization, right, and hope going forward. That is not happening. But as we have said, we are at the point where some form of restructuring would certainly have to.
So you say this is inevitable?
It's inevitable.
Okay.
It's going to be harder working around this with an IMF program.
I see. Prof, I'm grateful for your time. Always an insightful talking to you. Let's bring in a man who, at the beginning, when government first announced that they will be going to the IMF for a bailout, indicated to me on the show that looking at our debt levels, he doesn't see how the IMF will give us a bailout until we restructure or we find a way of making that debt sustainable. He's a former deputy finance minister. Dr. Casey Latoforsing speaks for the minority on finance. He joins us on the line right now. You made that point to me on the show the day the news broke that government is going to the IMF. With everything we've heard today from Bloomberg and Reuters, where do you stand on the reality that government may actually do this and maybe focusing on the domestic market?
Evans, thank you very much. Evans, I'm surprised that it is taking the country some time to come to realization that debt restructuring is inevitable. It is indeed inevitable. And it was written on the wall from the onset. Evans, if you're a driver or you've never driven a car and you sit in a car that obviously you can see that car is going to have an accident, I'm sure you can easily say it. I could tell, and it's a fact, that the IMF does not lend to a country with an unsustainable debt. Ghana's public debt became unsustainable in December 2020. And that is why I was pushing for an IMF program earlier. If they had heeded to Ghana's advice from the minority, and had gone to the fund earlier than announced, they could avoid debt restructuring. Today, where we are, Ghana cannot avoid debt restructuring. The question is, what kind of debt restructuring we have to do? First of all, the most important thing is we need to do a debt sustainability analysis. Then comes to what we call the restructuring envelope, where all of us will agree that Ghana needs what you call a debt relief of X amount of money. Until that time, you cannot say you are doing only domestic or external. Because the quantum of debt relief is what will determine exactly what you have to do.
And my sources tell me before we came on air that the government has done this analysis, and that's why it appears now that the axe is going to fall on the domestic bonds.
Okay. I'm not surprised that it's going to fall on domestic bonds. But we need to tread cautiously. Debt restructuring simply means that I cannot repay my debt. It is not about yentia, it is about min to mintia. Ghana is not in a position to repay its debt and have repeatedly said this. It is a fact. We cannot repay our debt. So the bottom line is whether the creditors accept a debt restructuring or risk default. What this simply means is that you accept that will give you a haircut regardless, or your money will never be paid by the state. That is where we've gotten to, and we have to live with it. I am of the view that the way forward is not for Ghana to shift the entire burden to the domestic investor. It is about time that we share the burden between the domestic and foreign, because the rent has been enjoyed by both sides and not only the domestic investor.
But Prof says that if you do the foreign, then that effectively shuts us out of the Eurobond, and that if government's ultimate objective is to get the IMF credibility so they can return to the Eurobond market, then that will be a suicidal strategy.
But why should that be government's ultimate, viewpoint to enter to the market? We are where we are because of excessive borrowings by government. So why do you intend to go back to the market as soon as you finish debt restructuring? What government should do is to cut down expenditure and live within its means. Where we are getting to until the government actually understands that our country is insolvent, they are making a problem. They are believing that the problem we have is a liquidity matter. Ghana's problem is certainly not liquidity. Our country is simply insolvent. Our country is bankrupt as we speak, and we should live with it. We should confront it head on. Any form of restructuring that is not comprehensive enough will only mean that we are kicking the can in a way that they will survive as a government, and to hand over the problem to another government, that will be resisted. They have to confront the problem head on and actually secure the future of the country going forward. They created it and they should live with it.
Dr. Kaysel Attoforson, thank you very much for your time here on News 9. Now, talking about, you've just heard Kaysel Attoforson make the point that government need to take a bit of a hit itself. Professor Bokbing makes the same point. Well, President Akufo-Addo also is tonight being urged to immediately scrap the position of Deputy Chief Executive Officers of state-owned enterprises and regional ministers. This is according to the Development and International Relations consultant, Professor Lord Mauko Yevuga. He's arguing that this is a sure way of urgently cutting down on costs to save the economy from further decline.
If you're going to reform the current global governance architecture, you have to be careful, because the powerful countries are not going to be on board. So you may be waiting for that till their kingdom cometh. So what do? Do things that are within your power. What confronts us as a nation, as a crisis, require both immediate and long-term measures. Immediate ones are the things that we can do quickly by withdrawing all deputy CEOs, making only deputy minister, cancelling regional ministers, making sure that chief executives operate in their districts and they report direct to the Minister for Local Government. Remove the repetition of some ministries. You can't have works and housing and have water works and sanitation and local government. What do they do exactly? So we have to realign and count down the size of government. Those are the immediate things that we can do in times of crisis. The long-term ones that are the ones I've described, the overhaul of our economy in relation to the global system. We need to transcend the Georgesburg economy. We've been talking about it. This is the time for us to do it. When we do that, all the crises that confront us will be things of the past because we can manage them better.
Well, at the ongoing Bar Redu Memorial Lecture, Vice President of Imani Africa, Kofi Bentil, attributes Ghana's current situation to expenditure owing to procurement breaches. In fact, the named speaker, Bright Simmons, agrees.
So why is it that we've had ourselves in this bind? And I agree with everybody here who thinks it's about expenditure, because I've argued that it's about expenditure. But it's actually about how we spend. When I talk about procurement in that sense, I'm not going to talk about it in the technical sense in which Dr. Ajay and others who are procurement professionals talk about it, the tendering process. I'm going to talk rather about three things: price, cost, and value. The price at which we do business, whether it's buying or selling as a government, has an effect on cost. Because if you pay more than you should pay, your cost is higher. If you take in less than you should be earning, your revenue is lower. And all of that has to do with the price effect. The second is that once it leads to cost, then because ultimately the value you get is a function of the cost you are paying, the value for money analysis then comes in. So my analysis is not going to be about how we handle procurement at the Central Tender Board or at the Public Procurement Authority in that narrow sense. It's going to be about the prices at which government does business, which affect the cost that the government faces in that very broad sense. And I will argue that we have a problem of systemic waste that is frightening and terrifying, but not as blatant in some countries like Nigeria and Kenya. So sometimes we don't feel it. A few case studies to establish that this issue around the challenge we face is entirely about procurement. When most people think about Woyomi, their minds do not.
And that's Bright Simon speaking at the ongoing Bar Radio Memorial Lecture. A few of your comments on what you've been hearing tonight. When will African leaders stop borrowing and help develop through our own resources? We are blessed with all natural resources, but yet saddled with gargantuan debts, which we will be paying forever. That's Seth sent us that one from East Legon Extension. This one from Marthing Luther. He says it's impressive how government appointees are engaging the public about the government's unprecedented development achievements across the country. The party's communication directory should augment the appointees' efforts. He chooses to focus on that. This one from Nana Kwamwa says the NDC national election will be a very interesting contest to behold, particularly when the General Secretary is now going to contest the incumbent. And a final one before I bring in George Yafe. And Nana on the Spinkters Road says all our financial state of Ghana. Is the government still paying the numerous deputies, researchers, etc.? Also, why is a free education not being looked at? Nana on the Spinkters Road is saying. And a final one from Senna says, what Honorable Atofo Singh have just said is totally true. This MPP government economy is very, very poor. George is joining me with more from the world of business. George?
Well, even there's more challenges for the economy in the Ghana city following another significant hike in the U.S. Federal Reserve rate. I'll be explaining to you what that will mean for our economy going forward and the local currency. Bank of Ghana reschedules policy rate announcement to October 7. We're getting you more details on that one. The business news on Newsnight is brought to you by MTN Business. Welcome to the new world of business. Ghana Pay and Allianz Life.
Kweku at his spunky new office to congratulate him on opening his business. And man, was I impressed. The business is just moving quick. The sales, customers, everything is just working seamlessly. The secret? He said,
it's MTN Business Broadband. In this fast-paced environment, we need fast and reliable internet to support all business types. No laggy online meetings, great download and upload speeds, impeccable business management systems, all inclusive. I mean, you can have it all.
Shout! I signed on immediately.
To enable your business stay ahead and stay connected, make sure you're signed on to the best internet made just for businesses. MTN Business Broadband. Sign up today on broadband.mtn.com.gh and manage your account on my MTN app. Call 0244 308 111 for more information.
MTN.
Son, we are so proud of you for setting up this hospital. I really love those hospital beds and waiting chairs. By the way, did you import them?
No, Dad, I didn't. I actually got them from Kindle Books and Stationery right here in Ghana.
Wow. We also bought our office supplies, safes, executive desks and chairs from Kingdom, and they gave us expert advice on how to set up our office.
Guys, that makes 3 of us. I also got our sofa and bedroom sets, plus our dining hall furniture for our new home from Kingdom.
Wow, Mom, that makes 4 of us. I usually get my stationery items from Kingdom. And my teacher also mentioned that our classroom furniture was provided by Kingdom.
So there you have it. Whenever you're thinking about setting up an office or acquiring furniture for your home, etc., Kingdom Books and Stationery should be your first point of call. With over 40 years experience in the industry, we stock and supply a wide variety of globally sourced office and home furniture, stationery and equipment. Visit our head office, Osu Akwaje, or our office near the Osu Stadium. We're also in Tema Community 1, opposite Olam SHS, Kumasi KNUST campus, UCC BC Cape Coast, and now at the Marina Mall, Airport City. Or call us 0302 764101, 764209, or 762792. Visit our website www.kingdomgh.com.
Allianz Insurance since 1890. At Allianz Life Ghana, we have a wide range of life insurance packages to suit all pockets, from individuals, groups, associations, and businesses. We cover your employees, your funerals, pensions, children's education, and your future. Call us on 0302 267 892 or visit our website www.allianz-gh.com for more inquiries. Allianz Life, we secure your future.
Alande.
Ghana Pay Alande.
Hey, finally, Ghana Pay Alande.
Do more your way on Ghana Pay. Send and receive money at zero transaction fees. Pay bills, buy airtime and data, transfer money in and out of your bank account, and so much more with Ghana Pay. Dial *707# to register for Ghana Pay, or download the Ghana Pay app from the Play Store or App Store.
Alande. Ghana Pay Alande.
Ghana Pay. Your money, your way.
This service is powered by Gibbs.
You're welcome back to Business on Newsnight. Now, the current challenges facing the economy and the Ghana city might not be ending anytime soon. It's coming after the U.S. Federal Reserve increases interest rates by some 0.75%. But why should we be worried about this development? There is more in this report.
The move by the U.S. Federal Reserve, or call it their central bank, has sent worrying signals across the world in terms of those that are managing the monetary space. Here in Ghana, the situation is not different. The decision to hike policy or interest rates is coming with some concerns for the Ghanaian economy. One can talk about how this could impact on purchase of the country's bonds. This is due to the rate hike by the Federal Reserve that is expected to push those that participating in Ghana bonds to other markets like the US. Now, this should mean that if we should want to attract these investors, then government must be willing to offer a higher price to them. We could also see a situation where existing bondholders would want to sell the papers that they are currently holding. One of the major reasons for the high inflation in Ghana can be linked to the amount of money that we are paying for these goods that we are importing. A strong dollar means a lot more Ghana cedi is needed to import the same quantity of goods. For some, this is another reason why maybe the rise in the inflation rate will not be ending anytime soon in Ghana. The development will also impact badly on the Ghana cedi. Already, all the major currencies around the world are losing ground against the US dollar. One can talk about the pound and the euro as well. This could also mean that irrespective of the measures that the Bank of Ghana put in place to support the local currency, there will still be some level of significant depreciation. Some have argued that, looking at the fact that the Federal Reserve have indicated that we should expect more rate hike, then maybe we could make an intelligent guess that current challenges facing our economy may not be over soon.
Well, let's still stay on the economy and developments happening in the financial space, because Ghana's plan to embark on some debt restructuring and the U.S. federal rate hike is already coming with some setbacks for the economy. Now, checks show that investors are willing to sell some of our bonds that they are holding. Now, that will make our bonds very expensive in terms of servicing for government, and also make these papers less attractive. Now, it follows news that government is planning to restructure the debts as well as the local papers. But government has given the firm assurance of what we are picking up, that whatever restructuring that they will take, irrespective of the outcome of the IMF and World Bank debt sustainability report, they will not touch the local papers. Two other stories. The Accra Central Area Enforcement Manager of the Ghana Revenue Authority, Joseph Annan, has cautioned that the authority will sustain its mystery shopping to some supermarkets and business operations to assess their tax payment obligations until there is sanity in that space. His comment follows an action by a team today that reveals that famous food joint Champion Dishes and 2 beverage shops in Dansuman have been issuing fake VAT invoice.
So we must come when you don't expect us, to be sure that even when eyes are not watching you, you do the right thing. So what they are saying, I do appreciate what they are saying, because I'm also human, and it's not palatable to be in this kind of situation. But the point is that if you are doing things right, we will not come in this manner. So that is it. And we are going to continue. So, like I said, we bring some sanity into the system. So those watching us and those hearing us, please, if you are registered, make sure that you issue the VAT invoice, because you never know when we will visit. We will knock at your door.
And that is the Accra Central Area Enforcement Manager of the Ghana Revenue Authority, Joseph Vannan. Now, the Bank of Ghana has announced that it is now expecting to announce a new policy rate on October 7, 2020 instead of next Monday. The Monetary Policy Committee should have ended its 3-day meeting tomorrow and announce a review the policy rate that is on Monday. But a statement issued by the Bank of Ghana maintained that it is rescheduling its decision on the monetary policy stance to coincide with the end of the IMF mission to Ghana. This will afford the committee to benefit from broader discussions that will be held during the period. Meanwhile, economist Peter Korte has maintained that the Bank of Ghana should tread cautiously any plan to actually review the policy rate.
If we continue to fight inflation by increasing the policy rate, there's a limit to which you can use this instrument to fight inflation. Inflation is demand side as well as supply side, caused by supply side factors. And demand management policies by the central bank cannot totally address inflation. The fiscal authorities would also have to come in. At the moment, there is the need for a massive injection of foreign currency, especially the dollar, and that is very critical. We cannot continue to fight inflation with demand management policies. It's good up to a point, but we need fiscal policy as well. If you don't address your fiscal situation and you use monetary policy alone, you will not achieve the desired result.
Professor Peter Korte is an economist. Now, indigenous carrier Africa World Airlines has assured customers of high safety standards in their operations. Addressing the press at a short ceremony to celebrate the airline's 10th anniversary, Chief Operating Officer Captain Kwesi Oteng expressed excitement after 10 years of service and promised more exciting times in the coming days.
Africa World Airlines does not compromise on safety in any way, shape or form. Safety is our prime concern. You cannot put a price on human life. You cannot put a price on what it takes to ensure that people reach their destinations. And on that note, the future is bright. We've been here for 10 years and we hope to be around for tens of years more to come. This is the first of our 10th anniversaries, and we give thanks to not only our investors, management, staff, but most importantly, our passengers, our cherished passengers who have been with us, who stayed with us through thick and thin, and continued to travel with us until this day. And for that, we are truly grateful to our passengers.
And that is Captain Kwesi Oteng. He's the Chief Operating Officer of Africa World Airlines. And even the economists will say, all other things being equal, on next Monday, September 26th, we will commence negotiations with the IMF for a fund program. But the question is, how do we ensure that we get a good deal looking at our current situation? Is the IMF going to just push things down our throats, or we might be able to negotiate to get a good deal?
We can definitely negotiate, but there are things like in negotiations, everybody will come with their own set positions, and then the question is, who is going to move and by how far are you going to move? IMF is clear on the table. One of the things that is clear, that's why we're having this debt restructuring conversation, is that your debt has to be sustainable. And you have to present with us a debt sustainability plan.
Just to emphasize that if we don't present a plan on how to make our debt sustainable, the board would not approve a program for us.
I mean, and the IMF, sources will tell you in recent years they have done that to other countries who had come to them. You can actually get the staff approval, but the executive board will not give you the approval. It happened to Zambia. You need to come back and show us a plan that says the debt. Remember, the IMF money is debt.
It's not free money.
It's not free money.
You
So
pay
you
back,
should
but
pay
more
back.
of a concession
And they
loan,
want you want to be certain that you can pay us back that money, so we can lend to other people. So that's going to be good, and that's the key. And that's why this conversation you're having tonight is important. I mean, I see that you have Setekpe there. I'm curious to ask him, when he was, when they were going for the IMF program, the last time we went, was it a prerequisite? Did they submit a debt sustainability plan to the IMF? Did they restructure their debts?
I don't know whether it came out at that time. Maybe it was done. I don't know. I don't know about that, whether it was done or not. But for many of us, said this coming on, and that is, Ivan, just to remind our listeners that PM Express Business Edition tonight at 9 p.m. We're looking at the IMF program negotiations. Can Ghana secure a good deal? And Setekpe is the former Minister of Finance. He's coming on board as somebody who's been there before. He's worked with the fund. What happened during his time? The circumstance changed. How can we go forward and get a good deal? Ken Thompson is a business person, chief executive of Dalex Finance. What does the business community also want in going into this program? How to ensure that a program that is friendly to businesses? And also, economist and finance lecturer Godfrey Bokping also coming on board, bringing his finance and economics expertise as we talk about the IMF fund program. How can we secure a good deal? 9 p.m. Joy News and all our social media platforms.
You really don't want to miss a very strong panel there, George. Thank you very much. We look forward to that at 9 p.m. For months, rumors were rife that General Secretary of the Opposition National Democratic Congress, Johnson Asiedu Nketia, was lacing his boots to run for the NDC's chairmanship position, leaving the General Secretary office he's held for close to 2 decades. Asiedu Nketia says he will not seek another term as a party's chief executive. This effectively means he will lock horns with incumbent chairman Samuel Fusu-Ampofo for the position. A number of persons have already lined up to replace him, including his deputy, Peter Boamo-Tokuno, Elvis Ifri Ankra, and Fifi Kwete. Asiedu Nketia says he does not want to be a stumbling block for these individuals who want to replace him, standing in the way of other people's ambitions, and will not seek re-election as General Secretary.
17 years. There be any why I call Congress ya manya below 80%. Entino, uka se wudi echira kodu da ye bebe 20 hour ene ube ado akonya no so. But me hwa since yambe general secretary. Nipa awie school ewo universities ya ye wo 10 branches ewo universities num throughout the country. Enti ba kokora ni mu a why na dwen se onya general secretary dia eye ne aspiration and that's what so obitima. Obia so ye na dwen se o corporate general secretary. Onim se obe face 80%. Na abone hu. Enti obia hyasia nipa miensa wabobo omudin se omonpere akufu. Obia ubisa obia general nkode ameko. Enti ade na se utena ho na yo ho stumbling block ana ceiling bi se wo de utena nipa bi wo mo so. Enti no my say me consider sa na ma nyina na me se da bi yenko yenim. Enti the make a chairman say general secretary no dey take it from me nye bi onko bi.
So that's him insisting and clarifying that he isn't running as General Secretary any longer. He will look forward to the chairmanship slot, or but confirming that. Now he says if he decides to run against Fusu-Ampofo, it will not cause any division in the party.
Matiti say ebinumo ka say Asiedu Nketia nkwande oni Ampofo koprea party numu beche echa akohefa.
I've heard people say if I contest Fusu-Ampofo for the chairmanship, the party will be divided. How will that happen?
Including Chairman Ampofo ama benyuanom ne ayinyina. Obia jaye say okopre post. Okay. And frɛ omutu omufo say momi entrance in the build the party no. Na imagine of victory no. Esha. Okay. Enti entrance in build the party no nanye formidable team on war machine. Okay.
When we won 2008, all party executives abandoned the party to seek ministerial appointments.
Babun the chop. Me ya mami minister de besi. We see ya mami we ya de besi. Me bo mani toto from omu nyina. No nyina ko. Enti Professor Mills frame me. E ka say mo a wabo a yetime wini sa de no. Positions no nego kan de ope. Na yemfama ansa na makoche de aka.
I advised them against that, but they all left. It was only myself, Chairman Kwabene J, and Yao Jan who were left at the party leadership level.
Mensah pen the car. Or Macanina will be a coy. Echo sevo a by more 8 years in Nina or Mocosevo.
So why do I have to make myself a stumbling block to the ambition of others? So I've decided that I will not run for General Secretary again.
So what does incumbent chairman Samofu Sampofo make of this announcement by his party's General Secretary? Listen to him as he spoke earlier on our sister station as Empire.
Minim bibia. Minim bibia. There minim ne say me chairman na me guso no me term nson ye. Me term so a.
I don't know anything. All I know is that my term is due.
Monhwe madwuma, monhwe indicators. Baby am befa party ni free 2018. Since I know 2018.
After my term, I will go and talk to the delegates to review my good works and bring me back to continue.
And for the first time in the history of our party, young speaker of the opposition party been see. If for nothing at all, I have worked with a group, and I'm proud of the group that I've worked with. I say kudos to all my national executive, regional executive, and constituency executive. Delegates, and here Juma Ayaye, no my entwaso.
So that's Samofu Sampofo, the incumbent national chairman of the NDC, re-emphasizing the point that the delegates will simply have to look at the respective records of whoever comes up to contest the chairmanship position, and then they can make a decision. He believes, of course, he's done enough in that position and and deserves to be retained. I want to bring in a poster and election watcher, Ben F. Singh, who's joining us right now for us to look quickly at what is promising to be a pretty interesting keen contest. Mr. Epson, thank you for your time here on News 9.
Thank you very much.
So it looks pretty clear that Johnson Nketiah is going to come up against his current chairman of Osuampofo.
But there'll be 3 people contesting. The third one is Nyama City.
I mean, these are very formidable individuals in their own respective rights. The tension, though, appears to be between Asiedu Nketiah and Ofosu-Ampofo. Do you understand why this is the case?
What I suspect, Evans, is that post John Mahama, the NDC will be looking to have an account presidential candidate in 2028. And I suspect that any of these 2 or 3, whoever is the chairman, is likely to be in pole position to contest for the slot. You know, I think Nketiah and Ofosu-Ampofo have been in the party for long. That is why the race between these 2 is going to be very, very tight, Evans.
You're right. I mean, we possibly haven't seen this level of contest in terms of the stature of the 2 individuals in question for that position. I mean, and on both of them currently hold incumbent positions going to run. But Asiedu Nketiah is clear that it shouldn't divide the party. You are confident that will be the outcome, and that the party post this will still remain united, looking forward to 2024?
Well, I think that they are going to have it in December this year, and I think that 1.5 a year and a half will be enough for them to patch up any hiccups which are likely to come through. I mean, clearly, the issue is going to be who John Mahama supports. I mean, if John Mahama obviously will be going for the flag bearership, he will be the favorite. And who he supports or not will determine whether there will be tension in it or not.
Ben Epson, thank you very much. He's election watcher and poster. Joined us with his views there. Let's do sports now. And Think is here with details. Hello, Fint.
Black Stars captain Andre Ayew, he's admitted the Black Stars are not at the same level as Brazil, but he's assured Ghanaians the players will make it a battle in tomorrow's pre-World Cup friendly match. The team wrapped up preparations tonight with a final training session ahead of the game tomorrow. Earlier today, Coach Ado and Captain Andre Ayew addressed the press where the captain made the comments.
No, they didn't get to this level and they're not playing for all these kind of clubs by mistake. They earned it and they've played, they've won Champions Leagues, they've won different trophies. So that's what I'm saying, that when you look at their squad from the goalkeeper to the 23 players, all players who play for top teams. So we know that, but football is on the grass. We are going to fight, we are going to follow the coach's plan from the first minute to the last. And we'll see where to take us to. And as I said, yes, it is a big game, but it's a game without pressure because there are no 3 points at the end of it. So we need to manage the game well and know what the meaning of the game, because what's important is in 2 months. That will be the place where you have points ahead and things ahead. But this is just for us to know where we stand, and we need to show good character and good quality.
So that's the Black Stars captain, Andre Ayew there. Joy Sports reporter George Addo Jr. He sat through that press conference. He has the rest of the highlights.
Coach Otuado, as expected, was quizzed on a number of issues. He was asked about what he made of the Brazil side. And you remember that he was on the bench in 2006 World Cup when the Black Stars lost 3-0 to Brazil in the round of 16 game. He says he sees this game as a normal one, even though he agrees that the Brazilians are, of superior quality. They have match quality in their squad. He's hoping that his boys can match them, boot for boot. He was asked a question about Mohamed Kudus and how he's been lately in Ajax. He's been playing at a false nine role, scored quite a number of goals. He says he's not surprised about Mohamed Kudus' performances as a false nine, but ultimately he was tight-lipped on how he's going to use him. We'll leave that out there. There was a question to him, and it was one that was always coming, about why Joseph Pinsel, the man who plays his football for Genk in Belgium, missed out on the squad. He was part of the last call-up. Coach Otuado said they had to take some serious decisions. That was a very tough decision to take, but they arrived at that because he felt that they're better players, or players who have done well right in the team than he at the moment. That was an interesting one as well. Coach Otuado obviously was asked a question about competition in the Black Stars, and he says there are a lot of things to try and decide, and most of them will be on fine lines. Like he mentioned, the acquisition that has got the likes of, Alidu Seidu, waiting right in there, like Tariq Lamptey, who has just joined the squad, and of course Dennis Odoi, who plays his football for Club Brugge. These are tight areas, and he says when you look around the pitch, it's all about competition, and he's looking just onto the pitch to see what they can do in terms of performances they're putting out there on the training to take a decision.
So that's George Addo coming through from Normandy in France there. Evans, I tell you this, Brazil are so confident their starting lineup is already out.
Oh.
And the game is tomorrow.
Yeah, interesting.
So we have details on our website, of course.
They may as well just share their tactics with us then.
There you go. What? It's a whole formation and everything. So
this can be very deceptive. They should just come and show us.
Their technical men should come and take you through.
Yeah, exactly. They might as well just do that. Anyway, the game is tomorrow. It's live here on Joy 99.7 FM. It's from 6 p.m. The build-up starts at 6 p.m. Correct?
Yes, that's right.
Okay, thank you, Fent. Now, the killing of a phone dealer and attempted kidnapping of 2 toddlers in parts of the Ashanti regional capital, Kumasi, have raised security concerns among some residents there. Police in the Ashanti region have been urged to step up efforts in fighting crime after the 2 separate incidents. Anaya Juma has more.
Residents of the area gather at the home of the deceased to mourn. They describe him as a gentleman. Since 2019, Abdul Wahab has lived in the house you see behind me alone. According to residents, sometimes he has his girlfriend visiting him. Now, on 3 different occasions, according to these residents, armed robbers have attempted to break into the house, but they have not been successful. Eyewitnesses say the robbers had earlier demanded money, which the deceased could not provide. Later, they requested his mobile phone. The robbers subsequently shot Wahab.
When I came out, and then she approached me and said that the guy has been shot. And I asked her, why is that you weren't shouting so loud that people could hear you and come? So she passed by the house and got to the next house behind theirs and called a certain man to the scene. And we rushed him to county hospital for first aid before he was transferred to Confanoche emergency unit.
Well, I want to stay with issues surrounding murders because the majority on the Defence and Interior Committee in Parliament, they've condemned the killing of Ines Trini in Mankasim. A Cape Coast District Court has remanded the suspects, one self-styled pastor, Michael Darko, and Tufuhin of Kumfi, Akwa Chrome, Christopher Eko Kwansa. They've been remanded in police custody. The two are alleged to have kidnapped and killed, buried Georgina Asoboche in an uncompleted story building for ritual purposes. Listen to Vice Chairperson of the Defence and Interior Committee, Ophelia Mensah, who is also MP for Mankasim constituency.
And I know it's so bad and awkward and coming at this time of the year. I can confirm that, for all you know, this murder was not committed in Mankasim. Instead, it was committed in Akrom under Kumfi, and then they secretly brought the body to bury in that uncompleted building. The police in Mankasim are on top. I know there are several patrols ongoing, and it is still ongoing. We tried even during the festival time to lighten up the dark areas, which I'm still doing. And yesterday I was discussing this with my committee members, some of which are here, Zanato, Honorable Agaga, the ranking. And I was even telling them, when are you people coming to Mankasim so that we can even educate the people, conduct investigations and advise accordingly. It's unfortunate, but I will not conclude that Mankasim is in a state of insecurity. Life is going on, businesses are going on normal, and I think everything is under control. It's unfortunate. I commiserate with the family of Aso, and then I will use this opportunity to tell the youth and all other and all Ghanaians that we should be careful of the people around us and the people that we trust our lives into their hands. Not everyone had a good mind or good intention, and so we should be calm.
And that's Ophelia Mensah, is the Vice Chair of the Defence and Interior Committee in Parliament and the MP for Ifantimand constituency. So listen to News Studies on Joy 99.7 FM. Thames, Stormzy, Jackie, and Sarkodia, can you sing word for word? You may want to refresh your memories because the countdown is on to the 2022 Global Citizen Festival, which comes off this Saturday, September 24, to call on world leaders and major corporations to take urgent action for girls, for the planet, and to end extreme poverty now. Now, with two stages in international cultural capitals, the 2022 Global Citizen Festival will be broadcast globally from two locations, New York City's Central Park and Black Star Square in Accra, Ghana. It will feature performances by Asha, Stormzy, Jackie, Sarkodia, Stonebwoy, Thames, among others, and it will air on Joy Prime, Joy FM, at 9 p.m. GMT. Live this Saturday, and so make a date and stay tuned because it's going to be live here on Joy 99.7 FM. It's also going to be live on Joy Prime. Well, up next, the CEO of Accra Digital Center is on personality profile.
What else? I can see my shorty from the driveway.